What's going on, guys? Welcome back. Today's going to be a great day. I'm excited because today we're building an engine. It's one of my favorite things to do in the shop, building engines and transmissions. And today we're building an engine for my truck. This build was initially going to be for that other mega cab that I showed you guys. We were going to keep it, but some things have recently changed, and I will share with you guys those changes as soon as I can. But as of right now, I gotta kind of hold it tight to my chest. It's gonna be good news, guys. Trust me on it. It's just gotta kind of hold it. So anyways, guys, let's go ahead and dig into the parts we have here, and we'll go over what the purpose of this build is.
All right, to start off with, guys, we got this beautiful table full of awesome parts. We'll go ahead and start over here. So first off, we got this Fleece coolant bypass kit. It's a used one. It's one that I had on the initial build of the Mega, and I took off because I had this build planned. And this engine is going to be set up more for towing rather than making huge horsepower. As you guys can see, we got stock common rail rods. But moving on, we got a Interstate McBee freeze plug kit. This is basically, it comes with most of your freeze plugs. It is a 12 valve kit. You can tell by this rear cam plug, but it comes with the freeze plugs for your oil galleys through the block, and it comes with some of the other ones that we use as well. I had the kit before that I was buying that came with the head dowels, but can't seem to find it. I'll have to do some research, but this is the kit we have right now. Moving on, we got a Mahle cam bearing, and then we got a Cummins OEM thermostat, and then some more leftover parts from the 6.7 build. You guys remember when we built this engine a couple weeks ago when it blew up? I had these overnighted, but we went to Power Driven. We got some Interstate McBee. These are basically just the piston oil coolers, J-Jets, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, that's what we got here. And moving on, we got of course, an OEM Cummins oil pump, and I do have a oil cooler relief valve coming as well, just not here right now. And then let's move on to some nice goodies. So of course, we hit up our boys at XDP. They got us hooked up with most of these parts are from XDP, always taking care of us. I really appreciate them. But start off with, we got of course some billet valve bridges, and then we got our 7/16 push rods. I went with the 7/16, even though this is a light build, because I don't see there's a reason why not to. They were about 40 bucks more than the 3/8 push rod, so I figured why not. If we do want to end up turning up this motor in the future, we already got the hardware for it. Also, it's not bad to have extras for the race motor, or basically kind of have the same part so everything kind of moves around as I need. And then for our valve springs, we went with the XDP ones as well. These are the higher strength for being able to turn up the boost. Again, I don't see a downside to upping all this, even though we're not going to be pushing major power right off the bat. And if you guys don't know, this is basically just Manton stuff that, it's the same thing that a lot of companies use. They just rebrand. This is a Manton part basically that everyone rebrands. I mean, 90% of these companies out here, that's what they're doing. Nothing wrong with it. Can't blame them. One day I plan to do the same. Anyway, for now, I choose to go with XDP because, again, they take care of me. They always have it in stock, and the price is competitive, at least for me. So moving on, we got, of course, all ARP hardware throughout the motor. We got ARP rod bolts, and we already had the rods resized and checked, because what happens is when you get these ARP rod bolts and really any ARP hardware throughout the engine, what it's doing is providing extra clamping force. So this isn't a perfect circle. Now you take this extra clamping force and you've now changed that circle even more. Usually you make it tighter, so then you got to bore this out to get the clearance that you need as far as the oil clearance to the rod journals on the crankshaft. We also got ARP main bolts. These are just 12mm mains, nothing crazy. Again, really the only reason I'm even going with these is because I had them. This is actually, a lot of these parts too are left over from another build that didn't happen. So it's kind of just recycling old things. So we got ARP head studs, just regular ARP 2000s. But yeah, that'll work. And then of course we got ARP flex plate bolts, ARP harmonic balancer bolts. Moving on, we got a Hamilton cam. And of course you got to get their tappets if you're going to run their cams, otherwise there's no warranty. It's a 178 208 camshaft. Now this is their towing camshaft. This is supposed to be good for small singles or small compounds. Really just good for keeping the torque in the low end, allowing you to have just a good overall street mannered cam, as well as helping you with towing. I'm really happy we have the 188 220 cam in the 6.7 motor in the Mega. Been happy with it, so of course went out with the Hamilton cams again for the new build. Moving on, we got some regular 5.9 Cummins pistons from Molly. Nothing special. These are the wide bowl design. Now these were actually the original pistons I was going to use on the Mega's engine. I was going to do a sleeve down 6.7 to 5.9 bore and use these pistons. But then everything changed. I ended up finding a good 6.7 block back in the day, and that's why we went with the 6.7 bore. So these are left over. So again, just kind of recycling old projects that didn't get finished or that changed direction a little bit. Moving on, again, we got the rods. They're just normal rods, 5.9 common rail rods. We just had the ARP rod bolts put in. Went ahead, resized the big end. And then of course we got new small end bushings, wrist pin bushings put in and sized up for the wrist pins themselves. Now for the power adders of what we're gonna run, first off, you guys know, DDP only around here. We went with the DDP 120 horse injectors. Basically a 45% over that will pair well with this 67 mil Taterbilt turbocharger. So this build is meant for towing. I know this is a bit of an aggressive charger for that, but I will kind of explain to you the secondary goal of this build and why we spec'd it out the way we did. Obviously there's some other things we're not showing. This isn't a full build. We got just basically Interstate McBee upper and lower gasket kit. I got the head fully rebuilt. The engine block is fully machined. And we're just gonna run basically a stock gasket setup, no firing, nothing like that here.
All right, guys, now you know what we're putting inside this engine. Now we gotta get outside. We're gonna go put the engine block on the engine stand. We're gonna get it cleaned out. Then we can get it in here in the room and start working on it.
All right, so we got the block all cleaned up. You've seen pretty much what we use. A little bit of Dawn dish soap, a Amazon special foam cannon. Got these Moroso engine brushes that you can get on like Summit or Amazon probably and whatnot. Put that back. I just keep them here because this is where I always clean up the engines. And then, yeah, so go through, scrub it all real good. Make sure you get the cylinder bores, but the main things are all of your oil galleys. The oil galley on the back side for the oil squirters for the pistons wasn't popped out, the plug wasn't, so that means they weren't cleaned out. Now the machine shop does do this cleaning usually, but we just do a bit more of a detailed cleaning. This is a trick that I learned from my buddy Josh McCormick. This isn't going to be a full engine build video. If you guys want a good breakdown on how to build a Cummins engine, I highly suggest you go check out Horse Torx Diesel. My buddy Josh over there, he's got a full assembly, tear down, everything on how to build a Cummins. It's a 6.7, but it's the same idea for a 5.9 for the most part. So again, guys, check him out if you want a full breakdown. This is going to be an overview of what we're doing and why we're doing. And now, any of you wondering about the coffee filters? I saw a trick on TikTok, or I think one of my techs sent me this TikTok, and they were using a coffee filter to clean off the engine. And I found that they actually leave the least amount of residue as far as like that fiber material after you wipe down everything. They still kind of do on these like hard cut surfaces, but I don't think there's anything out there that won't, so you just got to be careful. But as far as they don't leave residue when you're like wiping out the cylinder wall and everything, so I use that as like a final cleaning. Then obviously once we're done, went ahead WD-40'd all the metal surfaces so they don't rust. But little update over here. As you guys can see, she's just sitting. And like I said, I'm building this engine to put in here. Originally it was going in there, but a lot of things have changed in the last week or so. As you can see, we don't have the compounds on. I took the Power Driven 88 and sent it back to Power Driven. They're rebuilding it. It's a used unit. They're only charging me a few $100 to fix it. Like I said, it was used, so it's not like it was a warranty. I mean, she well performed within her bounds of reasonable use, I guess. But anyway, the engine's still running good. Everything's still working. The only downside is after we made that 1400 horsepower hit at Randy's dyno event, we went back to the shop obviously, and I did a oil change, and there was actually quite a bit of coolant in the oil, at least a quart or so. So obviously thinking head gasket, went ahead, drained it, and then pressurized the cooling system. And I actually found that 2 of the studs under the valve cover is leaking coolant past those studs, and about 3 or 4 of the freeze plugs, the thread-in freeze plugs on this head, were leaking. So went ahead, resealed all those freeze plugs. I think there's a problem in the thread tapping in the plugs themselves. We'll find out. And we did a hot retorque. I just left the coolant out so it wouldn't drain into the crankcase again. And did a hot retorque, tested, still leaked, did it again. So I did about 3 hot retorques, and I did cold torques in between those, just to try to save the gasket a little bit. I knew it wasn't gonna last forever, but I was hoping I could drive it for a little longer. Not the case. So I got 2 new Hazley fire ring gaskets again, and they were pretty much the last 2 that you can buy at the moment. So sorry guys if you were looking, but basically what we're doing is we're going to take this head off. It's a Power Driven ported head. They're stage 2, 3, or whatever. They're supposed to be like the race head. I'm going to have the threads redone for the freeze plugs, and get new freeze plugs in there so they don't leak again. Have the head machine surfaced again, gone through new seals, whatever. Then I'm going to sell this head because I actually have something better in the works that I will share with you guys when the time comes. So that's why we're going to pull this motor out and kind of put it to the side for a minute. We're going to work on some new stuff. I might change the fuel, might change the air. We'll see. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to pull this motor out. I need a daily driver. My poor truck just sits here right now, and I miss driving it. So
yeah, guys, that's pretty much why we're building this engine today. Even though we don't have another truck to put it in, we can put it in this truck and at least have something to drive for a while and still be able to play with it. So let's get this in the engine room and get started on it.
all right, guys, so what you seen, I went ahead and basically we got all of our cylinder specs done as far as double check the diameter of the pistons. And then we also checked all of our ring gaps. And of course, we checked our piston to wall clearance. This is another thing that the machine shop does, because ideally you send out your pistons with your block. You tell them, hey, this is what I want it bored or honed to. In our case, we got a standard bore, 5.9 Cummins, and we were able to just hone it out. I was shooting for 7 thou piston to wall. I ended up perfect, dead on, and with an extra 1/2 thou on cylinder 6, just so it can swell up a little bit more with heat. Again, this is something that the machine shop does already, but you just want to double check, make sure yourself. Doesn't hurt ever. Basically, this is what we got for our specs. We got 24 thou on our top ring gap, about 49 thou on the second ring, and 25 thou. I mean, it changes a thou here and there. Obviously, number 6 is a little bigger. So I think I'm happy with that. This is basically stock spec. You're looking at 14 thou, 45 thou, and 21 thou. I may or may not change these, open them up just a little bit more. If it was a customer build, I'd probably leave it alone. But seeing as I know I eventually will beat on this thing, I would like to have a little bit more leeway. Maybe not. I don't know. I'll kind of make my decision. We'll see. But really, the reason why you want to have more ring gap than factory, obviously, like I said, this is factory spec, and we got a little more piston to wall, our 7 thou piston to wall. I believe max spec, I'll double check, but I believe max spec on a 5.9 standard bore in the service manual is about 4 thou piston to wall, maybe 5. And basically all that means is just the distance in between, this little bit of gap that you have between the cylinder wall and the piston itself. So the reason why we want to have more clearance, basically, as far as why our ring gaps are bigger and our piston to wall is more than stock, is because when you get these really hot, these are cast pistons, when they get hot, what they're going to do is they're going to swell up. They're going to actually get bigger, right? Metal expands, especially cast. It expands kind of quickly. So you want to have some space in between your cylinder wall and your piston, so that way it can do that. Now, the reason why you want more ring gap is because as that piston expands, what it's going to do is it's going to push that ring into the cylinder wall, right? So you're going to lose the distance, and that ring is going to get tighter and tighter. And what you don't want is you don't want these two ends to butt. As soon as they butt, boom, and that's when bad things start happening. So that's why on a stock engine, you will stick closer to these factory specs. I still like to get on the higher end
There's really nothing wrong with going on the higher end. But in this case, since it's a more performance-oriented engine, we definitely up the clearance quite a bit. If you guys remember, the 6.7 motor for the Mega is quite a bit bigger, but also it's set up to do a lot more power than this one should ever see. So now what we're gonna start doing, we'll get the engine flipped over. We'll go ahead, put the mains in. We'll get some bearings going. I did forget to show you guys, I'm running the Molle H bearings for the mains, and we're gonna hope these Molle HX bearings will work for the rods, which they should, because these were measuring, according to Russell, these were measuring on the smaller side of specification. So hopefully the HX, which has a thou extra oil clearance, will be the ticket, because I don't have any other bearings. So let's cross our fingers there. And same thing with the H. I do have HXs if we need. We'll find out. So I guess next thing we should do is we should go over there. We'll measure the crank, get the block flipped over, and we can start speccing out the bottom end as far as oil clearances on the bearings. So let's go. So we got the block all specced out as far as what we have. Mains, right around 3.5 to 4 thou oil clearance. And again, I showed you, we got the piston set up. So now we're waiting for rod bearings and a few more things, so not much we can do. So gonna go ahead and start painting it. Got the first coat of primer down. This is the stuff I usually like to use, the Stupacolor engine primer. I do about 2 coats of primer. And then we'll do 2 coats of paint, and then we'll do 2 coats of clear, and that usually seems to work pretty well. Now the question is, go to my little aerosol area, what color should we do the motor? Kind of thinking this gray. I did a 6.0 a couple weeks ago like this, and it looked pretty rad. We could do a red and black theme, which would definitely fit the theme of the truck. Kind of like this 12 valve I just finished up a couple weeks ago too. I'll show it to you right now. I really like that one, so I don't know. We could go with the old gray, but I don't know. We could of course just go straight black, kind of keep it simple. And we could do a accent with the other pieces that are going to powder coat. Trying to keep this engine kind of neutral color, I think. That's why I'm leaning away from the red, because we may use it in a different build in the future. Obviously, it's not going to stay in the Mega because that's not the motor we need. So guys, drop a comment down below before, don't cheat, don't speed ahead. What do you guys think we should do for color? Or maybe I'll end the video here, I don't know. Yeah, let me know what you think we should do for color. Maybe I don't have the color you think we should do. Nothing crazy again. No purples, pinks. Come on, guys. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and keep primering it. And if I make a decision on what color I'm gonna do, I'll paint it. And if not, we'll leave it primered until I figure it out. But all right, guys. So decided to go with the gray color that we got.
maybe it's a little boring to you guys, but I like it. It's kind of a clean, simple look. I'll do the block and the head in the same color. And then as far as all the other accessories, as far as the timing cover, the timing housing, the flywheel cover, the oil pan, and the rocker box, and the oil cooler, I have a color for it that I've had in my head and I've used a few times, but I always did it with spray paint and it came out like crap every time I've attempted it. So I don't know if it's gonna make this video or not, but stay tuned. I think it's gonna look really good. It's pretty neutral. Some of y'all will like it, some of you won't, but whatever, it's my engine. So stay tuned for that. Again, waiting on some rod bearings, and then we can get the rotating assembly done and we can continue on our measurements. There's some crucial measurements we got to do as far as our piston protrusion. We need to make sure our piston sticks out of the deck, not too much, but not too little. And then we can get the head on, start with our cam degreeing and everything else that we got to do. We will start on that in the next, it's Saturday now, Monday's Memorial Day, so we're waiting on some parts. Tuesday we should have the parts we need, and we'll keep cranking away at this. We'll get the other parts sent off to the powder coater, and yeah, I will see you guys back on Tuesday. All right, guys, so we're still waiting on a few parts for the engine, but as you can see, we got it painted up. I decided to go with the gray. I think it looks pretty sweet. And the color I chose to powder coat everything, I think you guys are gonna like. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and swap out these stock valve springs. We got the head on the table. We're gonna swap them out with those XDP valve springs right now. Pretty simple. You got a little tool. You bolt it in where the injector goes, turn it down, and that'll let you get the keepers out, pull the keepers out, and just swap the springs. So, all right, guys, welcome back. We're back at the shop. The other day you seen we got the valve springs on the head, and today I thought I'd spare you some of the boring stuff, at least of measuring the rods. Got all the bearings in, got the crank in the engine, torque down, everything good to go. And we got our cam tappets in. You guys see we didn't put any lube on the bottom here because we do got to degree the cam, and I don't want that extra lube to mess up any of the readings. Once we do the final assembly, we will of course lube everything back up. So now let's go ahead. We can get the pistons on the rods, rings on, and let's start slamming the bottom end together.
All right, so now we have an assembled short block. We got rods in, cranks in, everything torqued down. Now we can start on the next thing. I want to show you guys just a quick little tool that I bought. This is from Linko Diesel. Pretty cool tool. Basically, it's a freeze plug installer. It'll pretty much install all the freeze plugs on this engine, and works for 12 valves and 24 valves, common rails, everything. Also comes with a cam bushing installer, which is pretty cool. You guys can see, show you this one. These are, this is one of the freeze plug installers. You can see has kind of a machined lip here. So that way it'll basically press in your freeze plug to just the right depth, which is pretty cool. One of these, I gotta look it up, I gotta remember, but one of these is for the oil galley. Yeah, I gotta double check which one does what. But it also comes with the oil galley ones, which is pretty cool because it'll set the depth just perfect. Pretty cool little tool. I think I'd recommend it. I haven't used it yet, but just by the quality and what it does, I think I'd recommend it. So anyways, guys, I think I'm gonna leave the video off here, getting kind of long as it is. Next time we will get the rest of the motor assembled, get it into a long block, we'll get the other motor out of the truck, and hopefully have a running engine. And I can also show you the accent color that we decided to go with on this engine, which I think is awesome. Like I said, I've been trying to use it a lot, and you know, finally think did it right this time. Think it's gonna look really sick. But yeah, anyways, guys, thank you for watching. See you next time.